Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you a real American hero. Edward Coles was born in 1786 in Virginia. He would serve as the private secretary to President James Madison and become pen pals with Thomas Jefferson. He would use this position to repeatedly encourage both men to take steps against slavery and free their own slaves. He was, however, completely willing to put his money where his mouth was by selling his plantation in Virginia after leaving President Madison's service, traveling to Illinois, and freeing the slaves he brought with them. Those slaves were worth about $400,000 at the time, which is in today's money over $900,000. This dude gave up almost $1 million because he thought it was wrong. Just how many people do you know today would do that? Not only that, he set up those freed families on their own farms of about 160 acres each, bought with his own money. Now, you would think, well, that's enough to make him pretty awesome. And you'd be right, but there's more. In 1822, he ran for governor of Illinois, defeating the pro-slavery candidate. Now, the state constitution of that time allowed for extremely limited slavery, but there was a movement to rewrite that constitution and turn Illinois into a slave state, with the leaders of the pro-slavery movement planning to move on to Indiana once they had successfully turned Illinois. Imagine how that would change American history. Well, Edward Coles wasn't having it. He led the opposition in the state legislature, and when he was unable to kill the bill, a referendum was sent to the populace of Illinois, and he not only poured his total salary as governor into campaigning against this bill, but spent his own personal fortune. And over 18 months, he and his allies would barnstorm across Illinois, countering pro-slavery arguments and rallying free soil farmers to vote the plan down. And they were successful. Eventual pro-slavers would attempt to wrestle the governorship from him afterwards, as well as try and hound him with lawsuits. And all of that was shot down by the Illinois Supreme Court. So Edward Coles fought pro-slavery and won in the 1820s. After this, Edward Coles would move to Philadelphia, marry at the age of 46, and father 3 children. As he grew older, he turned to writing history instead of making history. But in 1861, a newly elected President Lincoln would take the time to meet with him on his way to the White House, and Edward Coles would survive to 1868. So he would live long enough to see his dream achieved, the dream of ending slavery in America. His attempts to convince founding fathers to abandon slavery, freeing his own slaves, and fighting with every resource he had to prevent the spread of slavery, even when the majority of the country saw nothing wrong with it, makes this guy an American hero. And you can learn more about him in the book Road to Disunion Volume 1. There's a link in the description.